Hey everyone, welcome back to Williamson Ridge Outdoors. Today, as you can see, we're standing beside a nice size oak log. A while back, I did some Alaskan sawmill videos and tried an Alaskan sawmill out just to see if it's something that I would like and see if it would be feasible for me to use. I had no experience with it whatsoever. And I just, I kind of seen some videos and stuff on YouTube of other people using them. And I thought, I wonder if that's as easy as it looks or harder than it looks. And, so I thought, well, I'm going to get one, try it out on my own. But then I never did. And then a buddy of mine said he got one and he was like, hey, you want to try it out and use it on your channel? I was like, yeah, that'd be great. I'll, put it together and try that thing out. And it worked awesome. I absolutely loved it. But since then, a few things have changed and I've added a few accessories and stuff to it. And also I returned his and got a different one. And I was originally going to get the same exact one that he had, but I got to looking and I found the Granberg International makes one. And theirs is a little bit, actually almost double the price. And I was wondering, is this thing really double the quality, or, why is it so expensive? And, they claim to be USA made, whereas the others were actually, I believe, in China or somewhere. So what I ended up doing is getting the Granberg, I believe it's the MK4. And it's a 36-inch capacity chainsaw mill. I also got a few other accessories over the last several months. These things are somewhat expensive, so I couldn't buy them all at one time. So I was just kind of getting a piece here, getting a piece there. So I finally got them all together, and I've got my log ready to go. So I'm going to hopefully put all these things together and use them today to make using this chainsaw mill, pretty enjoyable. So let me show you all the stuff that we got. So to start with, like I was saying, we've got the Granberg Alaskan Sawmill. And the biggest difference on this, it seems like the aluminum rails are pretty well standard or about the same as what the Chinese ones were, except maybe they're a little bit thicker gauge. I know it's a good solid filling frame on this, but then the end pieces and stuff down here are much more heavy duty and seem like, it's a lot thicker material and a lot heavier. Your clamps and stuff for your depth and everything here on your bars is a whole lot beefier than what the Chinese versions are. The hardware is a whole lot better than what the Chinese versions are. This has got a little bit of dust on it. Actually, not from using it. I haven't even used this thing yet. I was actually just sawing off some knots and stuff that was on this log, and the sawdust blew over onto it. As you can see, they're stamped USA. These are all American parts. The Chinese version, it definitely will work, but holding up over a long period of time, I don't know. I had some issues like where I was running it, and some of the nuts and bolts were loosening up on it a little bit. And so I had to keep a check on those just to make sure everything stayed tight all the time. Now I still need to put the rubber handle on here. I was assembling this and I just haven't put that on there yet. But a couple things that we added to this to make life easier is actually the Alaskan Winch. That way, whenever you start your sawmill into your log, you can just crank this handle here and it'll pull that mill through the log. I'm hoping it's as easy as what they make it look on the Granberg website and the Granberg videos. And the next thing that we got is actually the Granberg Easy Rail system. This is the 10-foot version. It's actually got two 5-foot sections that are put together. So if you only needed 5-foot section, then you can actually take this apart and use only the 5-foot piece, which makes it pretty easy to deal with. It also makes it pretty portable because you can just pull one bolt out of it and those will slide apart. It's supposed to be much easier and much faster than trying to use, like, say, a ladder or a couple of boards. On my previous sawmill video, I actually used a 2x8 board and put on there and laid it across flat and kind of leveled it up. It worked pretty good, but it takes a lot of time to get that set up. Hopefully this makes all that easier. So enough talking about it. Let's get in here. Let's set this thing up, see how easy it is to get that first cut, and see if we can't cut off some slabs. So our main objective here is to get this thing pretty well centered up over the log. So once you get your rails centered up over the log, or at least, relatively close, then you want to level it side to side. So what I'm doing on it is actually, I'm doing the front and the back, and then that way the middle is not touching anything. And I'm going to adjust the level of it on each end first. And that is pretty much perfect right there. So now I'm going to come over here into the middle, and I'm going to bring the the screws right here down to touch the log and just put a tiny little bit of pressure on them, making sure that I'm staying level. So now that we've got everything leveled up from side to side and everything's sitting nice and solid and there's no play, there's no rocking or movement on this, I'm going to go ahead and drive these dogs down into the wood. Now that actually makes this thing rock solid, so we don't have to worry about any movement now. Something else that I just realized is you do want to make sure that you start with these screws down far enough to clear the top of your rail. I actually had one of them that wasn't going to clear right here, and I was just taking my level and was sliding it over and realized it hit that, and I was like, oh, well, my sawmill's not going to clear that if this won't. I had to go back and just kind of, turn them. Actually, I only had to turn this one in just a little bit. The rest of them actually were clearing, so I went back through and just rechecked everything and made sure I kept the whole thing level, and we are perfectly level right here. I mean, that's a quick setup right there. We're ready to put a mill on there and start cutting. So now that we've got our saw started into the log, I'm going to pull out our little string for our winch. I've got the other end actually attached down here on the far end of the log. It's got a little carabiner. We're just going to hook it. Well, I gotta say, that made short work of that. That is so awesome. You know, before I really had to work the chainsaw to get it through the log. Not to mention, I didn't have a ripping chain on it then either. I do have a ripping chain right now. I've got a 36-inch bar with a Woodland Pro ripping chain. I do have a Granberg ripping chain, which actually is, you know, a fair amount more expensive, that I will try out later, but I wanted to try this one first because, you know, if I'm extremely happy with it, the Granberg actually will probably be even more happy because it's a premium chain and it's kind of like their own cut and everything that they put on there to really make it rip faster and to make it last longer. This oak I think will look really nice, And you know, we've been talking about these trees around the house and being able to use these trees for something. I see a kitchen table in our future. So I'm gonna get back in here and start slabbing some of these pieces off. I'm gonna have to move. So Tamara's not home right now. I was telling her, I was like, I think those logs, just by cutting them from firewood, I think those are going to be really pretty. She's going to be so surprised at the way this looks. I mean, the camera probably doesn't do it justice of the true color and stuff on this. It is just absolutely beautiful. I noticed the saw on that one, it was really bouncing a lot. I don't know if it's because my chain kind of loosened up, you know, and it's like the first time using that chain. So it was starting to get quite a bit of bounce and stuff to it. So I'm going to snug the chain up a little bit and see if that's what the issue is, because I think maybe it was catching on the upper side and that chain kind of loosened, it's causing it to bounce. If that's not it, it might be that the chain already needs to be sharpened. If so, I may go ahead and change it and use the Granberg chain and just go ahead and kind of compare the two, because I was thinking that this ripping chain might actually get me through one log, especially since this log is clean. It doesn't have any dirt or debris or anything like that on it. So I thought by the log being that clean that the chain would actually last a pretty good while. So I don't know, I'm gonna snug it up. We're gonna check that out and see what it does, and then we'll go from there. So I gotta say, this is awesome. Starting to get in the evening time. I actually started on this about 9:30 this morning, getting everything prepared. So I had to put together some of my sawmill pieces and put my Alaskan winch on the mill, and then put the easy rail system together. Man, is this thing pretty. This is really turning out good, and that sawmill is doing a great job. I couldn't be happier with that. So we got our big oak tree slabbed out. So we got 5 3-inch slabs out of that, and these are just beautiful pieces of wood. Now I'm down to that last piece, and I could slab one more off of there, but it's getting late, and I'm going to go ahead and call it quits for this evening, and I'm going to go ahead and get this stuff stacked up and put underneath the shed and stickered. That way, you know, it can breathe, and hopefully we can get this stuff dried out and make some nice looking furniture out of it. But I gotta say, I couldn't be happier with the way that this mill is working out. And again, like I say, I ended up going with the Granberg, and they actually offered all these different accessories like the Alaskan Winch, and that made a huge difference. You know, you're not having to really muscle that saw through the wood. You can just turn that little handle and it just pulls right through there. But all in all, I have to say that I'm really happy with all this setup, and I'm glad I went ahead and spent a little bit of money on that Alaskan Winch. I think the only thing that I'd like to have now is just a platform to be able to set these logs on, so I'm not having to bend over and run this. That would save on my back so much. And if y'all have any ideas of how to build something like that, or have some ideas of where I could see one, you know, kind of get an idea of what one of them looks like, it'd be great. Leave that in the comments below. I think I'm set up pretty good for chainsaw milling. I can't wait to do some other stuff. Maybe, you know, some cherry. I've got quite a bit of cherry trees around here. If I run into one that's, you know, ends up being pretty nice, I'll probably end up, you know, taking, looking at a lot of this stuff more instead of firewood, looking at it as saw logs and firewood from now on. I do have a really nice hickory tree that fell over in the ice storm of February 2021, and it's probably at least a 24-inch nice, clean, straight hickory tree. And then I actually have a red oak that fell during that storm, and it's probably 36 inches or more. It's a really big tree, and it's pretty straight at the base. I don't have a bar and chain big enough to cut that tree up, so, you know, we may have to get a little creative there, or just maybe order me something else, or take it somewhere and have it sawn, because I'd hate for that tree to go to waste. But I'm going to have to get it out of the woods here pretty soon, or it is going to go to waste. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. The sun is starting to set, so if you enjoyed today's video, appreciate you hitting that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel and follow along with us for all the projects we have going on around the property. And when you do, make sure to hit that bell icon so you get notifications whenever I upload new videos, and we'll see you on the next one.